Mark, how long have you been at CCH?
My wife and I have been at CCH for about a little over 6 years now, and the last 4.5 years have been with our daughter, Emma.
I just wanted to ask you, what was one of your most memorable experiences as a young adult?
As a young adult, I would say it was during my seminary years. I graduated from college when I was 22, and then I worked a couple of years in the workforce. And I realized then, I had already decided that I want to go back to seminary. But I realized after the first year that the longer I stayed in the position that I was, the more I realized the less I know, and so I needed to go back. So when I went back to seminary, I had gone to seminary with a sense of that I was going to go into full-time ministry. And during my first year there, in the midst of all of this, feeling like I'm serving God and I'm, pursuing a call to ministry, I had begun to date a woman there at seminary who I really thought that I was going to end up marrying. And in the course of our dating relationship, eventually she came back to me and told me that it wasn't going to work for her, and that she was calling it off, basically. And when that happened, my whole world basically started to cave in, and I went through it in a tailspin. And I realized that for me, that relationship was not so much the issue for me, as much as it was kind of the catalyst that brought out a lot of issues for me, and particularly issues with my sense of trust and faith in God. And so I went through this whole tailspin, and as I was going through this tailspin, I really questioned God in a lot of ways, where I was thinking to myself, like, how God could you, who's good, allow for something like that to happen. What came out of that was the next 2 to 3 years of my life, really finding a faith that could really trust the goodness of God and really sense that God was for me and not against me. And so it was funny because even one of my friends, but when I was a senior, who I had befriended when I was a first-year student, I was there for 4 years, she even commented to me, my last year there, I was at a social function, and she had said to me, wow, like, where have you been the last 3 years? And because when you first came to our school, you were pretty, you were sociable and everything like that. And we saw a lot of you, but then the last 3 years, not so much. And that experience really kind of put me into a shell where I didn't have a good sense of myself. I questioned my whole identity. I questioned the goodness of God and what is my faith about. It wasn't that I was ready just to say there's no God, but what kind of God is there? And as a result of that, then I slowly came out of that time, so that by the time that I was graduating, I had much healthier view of God and much healthier faith, so that I could graduate in a much more healthy way. And so I look back at my faith now, my sense of who I am now, and I look back on that time. It wasn't a highlight of my life at all, but it was very much a memorable experience that I said to myself, wow, the only way that I could really come to the places that I really understand, and not just cognitively understand, but really know God in my soul, was for me to have gone through that time. In some sense, I don't wish it on anybody, and yet on another sense, I actually do wish it on people, because it takes you through one of those Job experiences where you have to really wrestle through your whole being what it means to have faith in God. And for those of you that are followers of God, I think it's a good and healthy place to question and doubt and to ask yourself, what is it that I'm really giving my life over to? And so, I don't think it's a coincidence that it happened in seminary either. My prayer on my heart was continually, even up to that point, was God, show me who you are, and may I fall in love with that. And I think given my past, I had to, which was filled with a lot of heartache and a lot of pain and so forth, I had to end up kind of going through that in order to be able to get to a healthier place. And so that I'm grateful for. It was very difficult. I had some really good friends and professors that were able to see me through that. And they didn't have a lot of answers as much as they did a lot of presence. And so I think that was pretty much my most memorable experience during seminary. We'll also say as a secondary experience, memorable experience, also during seminary, I met what are now two of my best friends in seminary. And people that stood in my wedding. And it was largely through like playing basketball together that I got to know one of my friends in particular. And I have both served with them at different points after seminary in ministry together. And they are lifelong friends. And so kind of on a more positive note, my memorable experience with seminary, at least in young adult years, was that time when I got to really meet some close and good friends. Yeah.
Mark, do you have any words of encouragement to the church as a whole and to the current young adults at CCH?
Yeah. I would say that one of the things that has gotten me through years, and particularly the downhill parts of my journey in faith, especially with faith communities and Christian communities, is the idea that God doesn't waste moves, right? So the word God's economy literally means God's household, the way that God orders a household. And so what some people have come to think about that is that whatever moves that go on in your life or in the church's life or in your Foundry's life or in young adult life, whatever moves that you think are, man, like this is just wasting my life, or why am I doing this, or why did I do this? That was such a mistake. That was the biggest mistake. God can use that. And so that is a very encouraging place to be, that it kind of takes off some of the pressure off of our shoulders to always have to get it right. And so I would share with CCH and with the young adults at CCH is to take comfort in knowing that God doesn't waste moves. Now obviously God would want us to live according to a certain way. But if you're not there, you don't have to beat yourself over the back. I think if anything, we do a very good job of being self-deprecating, and we need to more so live into the God-given goodness, in some sense, that God has created us to be, like in the image of God. And so as a result of this, if you do make mistakes, if you're not fully there and you're not feeling your faith as much, or you don't fully feel like God is at work, trust that God is at work. Right? God is always at work. And so for our community here, we have to trust that even in the midst of drudgery and kind of this mud mentality where feet feel like they're stuck in the mud, God can still use that. And so to take comfort in that, and to take, in a sense, energy and joy in that, that despite our flaws, And despite our shortcomings, God is still using that to bring about something very beautiful for God's kingdom.